Is the congregational hymn right after the prelude? Okay, thanks.
It's a welcome announcement.
Okay, good.
We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection would be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, binding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me band together to be my guide. Loving lessons I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. Greetings to those of us in the sanctuary and also to those who might be watching us online. Hello. I'm Jim Newtown. I'm your worship associate today. We're an inclusive, progressive, and LGBTQ affirming church, and we're happy to have you with us. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to talk to one of our ministers. And their contact information can be found at uuflint.org. Excuse me. Announcements. We have only a few announcements today. There's more information on the e-update, the weekly e-update. If you do not get our weekly email newsletter, please fill out one of the cards in the seat backs and place it in the basket as you leave. Or should be maybe a scan code on the back of your order of service, or contact the office or email us or slip me a note when I'm not looking. Okay, so the announcements, we got like 2.5. Remember our congregational meeting on February 26th following the service, which, if I've got it right, is 2 weeks from today. You can participate by Zoom using our usual coffee hour code found in our e-update. Various things that I believe it's in the e-update that we will be discussing and voting on that are fairly important. Okay. And secondly, this is Canvas Month. Our theme for this year's Canvas is Unleashing Your UU Superpower. And people are encouraged to dress as superheroes if they wish. Throughout February, we will hear messages on how we can share our inner superhero by making a special gift to this congregation. It'll be explained if you don't quite get that yet, but it's there, it's there. Your pledge form will arrive at your home by mail, but we also have blank forms back on the offering table. By the way, we have so far already have over $20,000 in pledges for this coming fiscal year. Okay, and then the 2.5, if you're not making a pledge this year and you've never donated to our church, then we encourage you to go to our website's homepage and click the Make a Money Match Donation Now. And you're welcome to make a one-time donation. If you fit those requirements, that you're new and have never donated before, there's a special matching fund up to $250.
Never donated to our church.
What an echo. Wow. Yes, ooh. That throws you off, boy. Okay.
So as a reminder, if you're watching online and you respond to people who are leaving text, don't forget to turn your sound on.
Which, now that I'm thinking about it, I forgot that. You may want to, I half the time forget that, and then when I do shut it off, I forget to turn it back on when I get home. And for the next day, people are saying, why didn't you answer your phone? Okay, so chalice lighting. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. We have some words for chalice lighting today from Thomas Starr King. Worship will cease when wonder dies in the heart. And I would encourage you to join me in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
Our opening words this morning are from Mary Oliver. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How can grass be nourishing in the mouths of lambs? How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads.
If you will all rise as you are willing and able, we're going to sing Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing on angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, Jesus guide us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from faith to giving. Love will guide us through the dark night. Thank you. You may be seated.
After our words of meditation today, and after our time of silence, you'll be invited to come forward, or you can go to the back of the sanctuary and light a candle of joy or concern. And you can also, if you choose to write in the book back there on the table, and your joy or concern, we'll put it in our weekly e-update. Our meditation reading this morning is from the Reverend Thomas Alburn, a UU minister and an author who's written over 25 poems, and some of his poetry has been performed worldwide. The world is no mere play of shadows. It is our home, a triumph over chaos. We belong to a community of creatures, bright orange butterflies of the sun, faint silvered moths of the moon. Turn with us to light and rush again freely into darkness. Life is charged with electric clearness, mirthful as ringing music. We are flowing and moving on the earth, wheeling with the stars. At dawn, the sun, a red arc flaming upward like a fire rising, clears the horizon's rim, turning from red to yellow, and from yellow to brightest gold. Each day is lived in the presence of things and creatures that should make us cry aloud with great joy. We live in a world made up of islands and continents with much space in between, uncharted and unknown. There is much that will not yield to human inquiry. And all, no matter what they find, leave the wondrous still wondrous. At the edge of our astonishment, we are always confronted by an unprobed mystery. Not out of this world, but in this world we are. In and of this world of skies and seas and fellow creatures. And we shall never know why. The creation is finally mysterious. It is a wonder. Let's join together in our time of silence. Amen.
Our reading this morning is from Richard Dawkins, an evolutionary biologist and former University of Oxford professor and author of 9 books. This is an excerpt from Unweaving the Rainbow. There is an anesthetic of familiarity, a sedative of ordinariness which dulls the senses and hides the wonder of existence. For those of us not gifted in poetry, it is at least worthwhile from time to time making an effort to shake off the anesthetic. What is the best way of countering the sluggish habituation brought about by our gradual crawl from babyhood? We can't actually fly to another planet, But we can recapture that sense of having just tumbled out to life on a new world by looking at our own world in unfamiliar ways. The feeling of awed wonder that science can give us is one of the highest experiences of which the human psyche is capable. It is a deep aesthetic passion to rank with the finest that music and poetry can deliver. It is truly one of the things that make life worth living, and it does so, if anything, more effectively, if it convinces us that the time we have for living is quite finite.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. Gods are gonna trouble the water. See that host all dressed in white. Gods are gonna trouble the water. The leader looks like the Israelite. Gods are gonna trouble the water. You better wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. Gods are gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in red. Gods are gonna trouble the water. Looks like the band that Moses led. Gods are gonna trouble the water. You better wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. Gods are gonna trouble the water. Gods are gonna trouble the water.
Creation is a wonder. It has been thought by theologians, poets, scientists, and a young Charles Darwin as he walked off the HMS Beagle in England in 1836. The 26-year-old was carrying a 770-page diary, bottles of alcohol with 1,500 species, 4,000 dried specimens, and 2,000 pages of zoology and geology notes. Although he carried with him knowledge that completely broke away from the traditional scientific laws of the universe, I doubt that he would have guessed his birthday, February 12th, would be celebrated to this day. Darwin did know that many British scientists eagerly anticipated his arrival and other Beagle passengers that disembarked with him, including giant Galapagos turtles and other exotic creatures he managed to cram into the ship, making him less than popular with the rest of the crew. Darwin's luggage was likely not as heavy as what weighed on his mind, though. He had joined the Beagle crew, an unknown but hopeful budding naturalist, to survey the coast of South America. Now, his research could shake scientists and religions to the core. His theories on biological sciences would change how the world understood plants, animals, our humanity, and of course, religion. It broke away from the belief of a God that magically designed all living things in a matter of 6 days a few thousand years before. It changed the literal belief in the Bible. It went so far as to say that humans evolved from apes, destroying the time-honored theology of being made in God's image. Imagine the outrage. People get upset today when they see images of Jesus that are black. Darwin must have understood the consequences of his discoveries. I would imagine that the pressure on that young man was overwhelming. But so were his feelings of awed wonder that Richard Dawkins wrote about. Darwin was captivated by what he had learned. He wrote, "It is interesting to contemplate a tangled bank clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth, and to reflect that these elaborately constructed forms, so different from each other and dependent upon each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us." Now, there were scientists before Darwin and some of his own contemporaries who had considered what people would later call the theory of evolution. It was not completely new, but no one had had the nerve or the proof to take it to the world stage. Darwin now had solid foundations of fact from his voyage. But just as evolution is a slow, careful change, it would take him 20 years before he published his seminal work, The Origin of Species. He had deep fears that his arguments would be ridiculed. So, despite being privately confident in his conclusions, and having the added burden of knowing that there was another scientist with similar theories that could publish before he did, Darwin waited. He spent 2 decades studying more plants, such as orchids, more animals, such as pigeons, to back up what he essentially already knew. 8 of those 20 years was spent on studying barnacles alone. In fact, it was primarily barnacle reproduction in his lab rather than the finches on the Galapagos Islands that solidified his theory of natural selection. Now, you will remember natural selection has to do with the adaptability to habitats by organisms. Since barnacles remain attached to stationary objects, Darwin found that distinct species of barnacles had evolved so that certain parts, let's say, of barnacles had evolved to be incredibly flexible to reach other barnacles so that they could mate. Despite the importance of these creatures to his success, Darwin said he hated barnacles more than a sailor on a slow-moving ship. Natural selection was the thrust of the book, The Origin of Species. But this is also the book most cited when people criticized Darwin. Yet it was never mentioned the word evolution in it. It was his next book, The Descent of Man, where the evolution of man was first presented in print. There, Darwin broke away from the mainstream science and garnered the wrath of God-fearing folk, and still does in some fundamentalist circles. Now, unlike most scientific essays of his day, the way Darwin wrote was accessible and some may say even poetic at times. I'd like you to listen to the last few sentences of The Origin of Species that he wrote. There is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that, whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. Sharing the beauty of nature in this way made his books popular. The simplistic harmony of the universe as one was the natural spirituality for which some readers had longed. But as more people read his theories, the more critics sounded the alarm. Even some progressive folks felt the idea of evolution threatened the very foundations of Christianity. Now, historically, both Unitarians and Universalists welcomed and blessed slow, gradual, careful change. But even this rocked some of them. Just a decade after The Descent of Man was published, a Universalist minister by the name of James Tuttle publicly opposed the theory of evolution. His congregation, the Universalist Church of the Redeemer in Minneapolis, which just happens to be the very first UU church I ever attended, was active in social services, social reform, and even women's rights for years and years. But evolution went too far. But when a ministerial colleague of Tuttle's was tried for heresy and removed from fellowship for advocating evolution, Tuttle changed his mind. So when Tuttle retired, he actually supported his exceptionally progressive and Darwinian assistant to become the senior minister after him. Reverend Marion Shutter did not disappoint. Shutter helped found the first settlement house in the city, which offered daycare and English and citizenship classes. He supported playgrounds and vacation schools for children and involved himself in the city planning of Minneapolis. And in the year 1900, he thought it was high time to tackle evolution on a grand scale. Reverend Shutter announced he would preach a series of 12 sermons to prove that there was no real conflict between science and religion. He believed that Darwin's theories could strengthen universalism and actually all religions. The talks, entitled Applied Evolution, drew audiences of 1,000 people each. And the entire series was published into a popular book, and you can still get them. I've seen some on Amazon. Shutter discussed how religion benefited from scientific advances, such as evolutionary theory, by appealing to our human intellect. He explained that science encouraged people to look at facts in theology rather than just our wishes or our hopes and dreams. He said that science emphasized reasoning, not just pure faith, and it helped us enlarge our understanding of the universe and nature, which in turn would then enlarge our understanding of God. Shutter argued that evolution did not make a person lose God, but made people nearer to God. by seeing God inside of all of nature, not outside of it. He called this new understanding the God of evolution. And he encouraged his listeners to find intelligence, purpose, and righteousness in the universe and not apart from it. Once a creator was within everything, Shutter deduced that the next logical step was that human beings were created out of the same particles of the universe as everything else. He asked people then to consider the obvious resemblances of man to other animals and concluded that evolution was the only theory that rationally could account for those resemblances. He illustrated the point with a story of the first fish coming ashore. He said that nature saw the fish and lamented at how long she had labored at perfecting the underwater breathing. What am I going to do with those gills? I hate to waste them. But then nature realized that land creatures would need something altogether different to survive. She thought they need hearing. Nature refashioned those gills, and land creatures developed ears. Shutter reminded his audience that then land creatures developed their ears, and the fish kept their gills and went back to the water, and told the audience at some point an embryo of both a human and a fish look exactly the same. Shutter concluded by expressing his wonder at the world of beauty and mystery that evolution exposed. He stated, "If we look with awe and reverence upon God when we believe the universe so small, how much greater reverence should we regard God when we look at evolution?" Obviously, the Unitarians and Universalists have moved significantly beyond Shutter's conclusions about the marriage of science and faith, as have many Christians. We do, however, maintain our amazement and reverence for the natural world. I believe Shutter did help build the foundation for our beliefs of Unitarians and Universalists that still remain today. But if you look around, there are still plenty of congregations that wouldn't be comfortable singing a song with the lyrics, "We are swimming in the stream together. We are washed by the very same rain." And listen to this. It was 2008 when the Church of England finally apologized to Charles Darwin for, quote, "misunderstanding you, and by getting our first reaction wrong and encouraging others to misunderstand you still." Lifetime agnostic Darwin probably wouldn't have cared all that much, is my guess. Although he had studied to become a clergyman as a young man, but only at the insistence of his father. And that was after his father made him go to medical school. But upon seeing his first cadaver, Darwin got ill. Attending seminary may have been quite a bit of good luck, however, because while there, Darwin renewed his childhood pastime of collecting and studying beetles at Christ College. He was out walking one day, and he noticed 3 distinct kinds of beetles under a piece of bark. And he got very excited, as we all do when we see beetles. And he wanted to take them back to his room to study them more closely. So he collected one in each hand, and anxious to get the third home unharmed, he did what any of us would do. He put it in his mouth, the third one in his mouth. Well, there, the third frightened beetle expelled a foul liquid. And Darwin quickly settled on 2 beetles for research, and then he hoped to get the third one another day. But this is indicative of his excitement for the world of nature and where he finally decided his true calling lie. So while he was in seminary, he heard from relatives that there was a surveying ship about to leave, the Beagle, and they were looking for a naturalist. And as was his habit in his entire life, Darwin broke away from what was conventional and what his father wanted, and he immediately applied. Unfortunately, the captain, Robert Fitzroy, rejected Darwin outright. Fitzroy believed he could determine the character of a man by the shape of his nose, and thought Darwin's reflected a man whose countenance would not tolerate the journey. When Darwin's uncle heard of it, knowing how much that trip meant to him, the uncle personally convinced Fitzroy that he had misread Darwin and asked him to accept him. By the way, that uncle later became his father-in-law. Darwin and Fitzroy shared a room aboard the Beagle, and Darwin reported that he was treated well, but they were not without occasional arguments, particularly when it came to slavery. Darwin felt slavery was an abomination, as did his Unitarian and abolitionist family. In one argument, the captain defended himself and told Darwin that he had visited a slave owner and asked his slaves if they wished they were free, and they said, "Of course not." Darwin questioned the captain as to whether he thought that the answer of slaves in the presence of their master was worth anything. The captain became so angry that a first lieutenant on the ship had to intervene, and the other officers offered to let Darwin bunk with them rather than the captain. Later, however, Darwin reported that the captain apologized and then asked him if he would move back in with him. Later in the voyage, Darwin saw other instances of slavery that further strengthened his abolitionist views. Some scholars today believe that his extreme beliefs helped spur him on his quest for proof of evolution. By the end of his journey, he had seen such great cruelty to animals and people that he had decided that there should be no violence done to beast nor man. Evolution, he thought, would show that everyone arose from the same substance and prove the equality of all races and all things. But arguments were the least of the problems Darwin encountered during his 5-year journey. He had 57 months of seasickness and picked up foreign maladies that would weaken him for the rest of his life. Despite all of this, Darwin was making too much progress to care. With not enough room on board, Darwin would send letters and specimens back to British scientists about his discoveries. They followed his progress with great interest, especially when he discovered a complete skeleton of a giant sloth. He toiled for hours and hours in Argentina to unearth just a part of it, but it would be one of the creatures that helped his theories evolve, because he had seen a different kind of sloth living in his travels. This was just a taste of what Darwin had to show the world. His sense of wonder and amazement of the natural world impelled Darwin to collect live and dead specimens, dig fossils, and at the very least take copious notes on anything that seemed interesting and new on his adventure. On the Galapagos Islands, that was just about anything, and where he would collect a majority of his research. Darwin's fearlessness and perseverance on the Beagle were most fortunate, because once he returned to England, he realized his health had been permanently damaged from the voyage, and he would never again be able to travel to do any field work. So he arrived home and was resigned to finishing his research in England. He married a wealthy cousin and settled on a country estate with gardens, a greenhouse, a laboratory, and a study that gave him ample room to complete his work when he was feeling well enough. He managed to have enough healthy times to complete his research and break away from the error-ridden science of his day to change our view of life on this planet forever. Now, I would like to think that his Unitarian roots helped get him started a bit. The Unitarians, breaking away from traditional Christianity and denying the Trinity hundreds of years before, surely had a small influence. Darwin realized that if God was one, we all are one in a cosmic sense. And although agnostic, he never claimed to replace God with his theories. As liberal Christianity evolved, theology would change to interpret God within his theory, by including God as a force within the natural universe. Religion was never erased by Darwin, but simply enhanced with awe and wonder. These were the same emotions about nature that led him to his groundbreaking conclusions. We can certainly credit Darwin with helping our own faith evolve into what we believe today. Our UU principles of inherent worth and dignity and the interdependent web of all existence are clearly linked to that evolutionary spirit. His discoveries connected the natural world to the amazement and reverence that we now consider a clear embodiment of spirituality. As Darwin noted, in this view of life, there is grandeur. Rather than removing mystery, the story of evolution has given us all a place in the history of the universe. As Harvard biologist Edward Wilson puts it, we now know ourselves to be reworked stardust, biological beings with a multi-billion-year pedigree. And that's as empowering as any tale that has ever come alive in the flames of a fire, at the mouth of a cave, or in the vaulting echoes of a cathedral. We cannot underestimate the importance of Darwin's work on the world or the influence it has had on our faith tradition or any religion for that matter. So for me, those are exceptionally good reasons to celebrate February 12th.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, yeah, I took no VIP. I reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me. Now I wanna be a man cub, and stroll right into town. Be like all the other men, I'm tired of monkeying around. Oh, ooh, I wanna be like you. I wanna talk like you, walk like you do. You see it's true, and ape like me can't like to be human too. Now don't you kid me, man cub, I made a deal with you. What I desire is man's red fire to make my dream come true. Now give me the secret, man cub, come on, prove me what to do. Give me the flower of man's red flower so I can be like you. Oh, ooh, I wanna be like you. I wanna walk like you, talk like you do. You see it's true, and ape like me can't let to be human too.
We know that the financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are very, very grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds that we gather to do a greater good for our world than we could ever do alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. We invite you to join us as we take the collection by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the church as you leave, or by making an online gift at uuflint.org. And thank you for all the gifts you give.
At the back of our brains, there is a forgotten blaze or burst of astonishment at our own existence. The object of the spiritual life is to dig for this submerged surprise of wonder.
And let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Now we're all going to sing the song that I sang before together.
Who's gonna dance with me?
We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, we have gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. I move forward to come before me, band together to be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all living to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share. Have been with us since life's beginnings, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Beautiful.
Thank you, Bonnie.